Brakata Yahweh Yahweh Shai, Brakata Yahweh Yahweh Shai, Brakata Yahweh Yahweh Shai, Brakata Yahweh Yahweh Shai, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Wabarak, Wabapah, Wakazak, to the apostles, elders, and the brethren throughout the four corners. I want to say Shalom, this Elder Tazadakba from GMS Springfield. And I'm coming to you with a lesson that I'm basically going to call this lesson a classic case of Deuteronomy 28 and 16. So I'm going to start off with that scripture, Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, verse 16. Curse shalt thou be in the city, and curse shalt thou be in the field. Curse shall be thy basket, and curse shall be thy store. Your basket, that's your on hand, like your on hand cash, your pocket. Your store, your surplus, what you put to the side, what you put away for a rainy day. Now, why am I calling this lesson that? So let me go to this article. This is an article about Boston. It says blacks in Boston have a median net worth of $8. Whites are worth $247,000. So that's what prompted me to call this lesson a classic case of Deuteronomy 28 and 16. So let me read a little bit of this, and then I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna just go to the meat of it because I'm not gonna try to make this lesson super long. So right here, this is about the third paragraph. According to the report, African Americans have a median net worth of $8 compared to white city dwellers who have an average net worth of $247,500. This disparaging stats were first uncovered in the 2015 report by the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, which calculated net worth by subtracting the amount of household debt from their total assets. This means that black Americans owe just about as much money as the combined value of what they own. The report also found that Caribbean blacks had an average of $12,000 worth, Puerto Ricans have worth about $3,020, and Dominicans worth zero. Now, when you look at a stat like this, there's a reason for a stat like that to exist. Because it's because of the fuckery of the so-called white man. See, white people will read something like this, and then they'll laugh, they'll make fun. So are the other nations. Like, damn, you niggas been here for about over 400 years, and you still can't get a grip. Well, there's a fucking reason why we can't get a grip in America, why we can't excel here in America. Number one, the Lord put a curse on us. Let me go back to that scripture, Deuteronomy 28 and 16. Curse shall thou be in the city. It's not Boston the city. Curse shalt thou be in the field. And no matter where we are in the world, we're cursed. Curse shall be thy basket, and curse shall be thy store. So now let me go back here to this article. Now, again, you so-called white people, you'll read an article like this, and in your mind is like, why is it you black people can't, why you can't advance? Why is it you guys are just stuck in a hole? It's because of you fucking devils. Now, and this is the day that you devils, not only you, but the other nations look for. Now, let me get another scripture here. I want to touch on another scripture. If I can go back here, take it back a little bit. And now I'm going to go to the book of Lamentations. Lamentations. I'm going to go to Lamentations, the second chapter. And start at the 15th verse. Lamentations 2 and 15 on down. All right, let me just highlight this and then read on down. All that pass by clap their hands at thee. They hiss and wag their head at the daughter of Jerusalem, saying, Is this the city men call the perfection of beauty, the joy of the whole earth? All thine enemies have opened their mouth against thee. They hiss and gnash the teeth. They say, We have swallowed her up. Certainly this is the day that we have looked for. We have found, we have seen it. The Lord hath done that which he had devised. He hath fulfilled his word that he had commanded in the days of old. He hath thrown down and hath not pitied, and he hath caused thine enemy to rejoice over thee. He hath set up the horn of thine adversaries. When you go back to this article, that's exactly what this is. So let's examine why blacks in Boston have a median net worth of $8, which basically can't even buy you lunch. That's barely even buying you lunch because the average lunch you buy is going to cost you about $8 and change, and then when you add the tax on, you're looking at about a little over $9 and change, about $9 and change. So that's basically lunch, and whites are worth 247K. Well, there's a reason for it. The reason for it, number one, is slavery. You so-called white people brought us over here on cargo slave ships from West Africa, from Portugal, Spain, and West Africa, worked us free and built up your country. Okay, your country was built up through the backs of slaves, whether it was in the Caribbean with the sugarcane plantations that's in Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, Puerto Rico, um, just to name a few. Whether it was the sugarcane plantations in the islands, or whether it was the one of the number one commodity in the South, which was cotton. It was because of slavery, number one. Now, after slavery, you had something called Reconstruction. What Reconstruction was after slavery. Let me read about it. Reconstruction was the time after slavery, after the Civil War. So I'm gonna read here. Okay, this article is called America's Story. After the North defeated the South in the Civil War, politicians faced the task of putting the divided country back together. There was great debate about how severely the former Confederate states should be punished for leaving the Union. With the assassination of President Lincoln in 1865. So this is right after Lincoln abolished slavery. Lincoln was killed in 1865. And then after him came President Andrew Johnson. It was up to President Andrew Johnson to try to reunite former enemies. The Reconstruction Acts of 1867 laid out the process for readmitting Southern states into the Union. The 14th Amendment of 1868 provided former slaves with national citizenship, and the 15th Amendment granted black men the right to vote in 1870. These were only the first steps, however, toward reconstructing the fragmented nation. So now, after slavery is abolished by Lincoln, then after he's assassinated, okay, the new president who comes in, Andrew Johnson, puts these laws into motion, or these ratifications into motion, which is known as Reconstruction. So now, after slavery during the Reconstruction period, what took place after that? When Lincoln freed the slaves, right? And this is before he was killed in 1865. One thing that's not talked about is when Lincoln freed the slaves, what was also done was this. When Lincoln freed the slaves, in 1862, he signed a bill when slave owners got reparations for every slave that was freed that was on their books in the plantations all throughout the South. So the plantation owners received reparations. Yet the Dred Scott case, when he was suing his slave master for 40 acres and 2 mules because black people were promised 40 acres and 2 mules reparations for being in slavery. The Dred Scott case, it was ruled in the Supreme Court that a slave cannot sue his master. So slaves still to this day, we are the sons and daughters of slaves, descendants of slaves, we still cannot get reparations for what happened to our foreparents 400 years ago. But those same Confederate bastards, all right, or the Southerners, and the Northerners too, because Jake was in slavery in the North too. It wasn't just in the South. Were reimbursed $300 for every enslaved person freed. I'm gonna read it again. When this article is from the New York Times, and all of these articles I'm gonna bring up in the description box. I'm gonna put the link for every one of these articles in the description box, so you can go and read them and look them up for yourself. You brothers might do your own shows on them. When slave owners got reparations, Lincoln signed a bill in 1862 that paid up to $300 for every enslaved person freed. So if you own 200 slaves, you got $300 for every slave that was freed that was under your possession. So the slave owners got reparations from the government for slavery being abolished. Yet the slaves themselves could not get reparations from the fucking so-called white man for slavery. Being enslaved for over 400 years. We couldn't get reparations for that. Dred Scott couldn't get his 40 acres and 2 mules. So now let me touch this article again. Blacks in Boston have a median net worth of $8, while whites are worth $247K. No wonder. So after Reconstruction, which is after the Lincoln got his dome blown off, before Lincoln's dome was blown off, he signs a bill for slave owners to receive $300 per slave. Okay, so then after the Reconstruction period, so now there was another thing that happened also. This was after slavery. After slavery, Israelites wasn't just, when I say Jake, I mean Israelites weren't just sitting on their ass and looking for a handout from the so-called white man. After slavery, Jakes were business minded and got it in their mind, we got to do for self. So Israelites did for self. And now what happened as a result of that, of Israelites doing for themselves? You had a situation, okay? There was a situation that happened known as, if I can bring it up here, 'cause I got mad articles here. This is just one of Durham, North Carolina. Basically, you had a Black Wall Street that was in Durham, North Carolina. You had a Black Wall Street there, which was different, which was basically the southern version of Wall Street that was out there in Oklahoma, which is what that's like. That's out west. Now this one, let me just read on down here. Give you a little bit of history on this Wall Street. You had a Black Wall Street. This place was prosperous. These Jakes were businessmen. They had banks. These are Jakes after Reconstruction that got together to do for self. Matter of fact, let me just read here. The Rise and Fall of Black Wall Street. This is Black Wall Street in Durham, North Carolina. A documentary exploring the rise and fall of Black Wall Street in Durham, North Carolina. Beginning in the late 19th century, states passed laws to keep the races separate and to restrict the opportunities of African Americans. The system created by these laws was known informally as Jim Crow. More than 1 million African Americans fled the Jim Crow South, especially after World War I, seeking opportunity in northern cities. In the early 20th century, Parish Street in Durham, North Carolina, was the hub of African American business activity. This four-block district was known as Black Wall Street, a reference to the district of New York City that is home to the New York Stock Exchange and the nation's great financial firms. Although other cities had similar districts, Durham's was one of the most vital and was nationally known. Parish Street bordered the Haiti community, Durham's main African American residential district, and the two districts together served as the center of black life in Durham. In 1906, the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company, the nation's largest black-owned insurance company, moved its headquarters to Paris Street. It was soon joined by the Mechanics and Farmers Bank, and the founder of North Carolina Mutual also invested in real estate and textiles. National leaders W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington both visited the city in 1912 and 1910, respectively, and praised black entrepreneurship. So these are Jakes after slavery that were black entrepreneurs that were doing things. Okay, they were into textiles. They had their own banks. They were loaning each other money to set up businesses and were working for themselves. And what brought this down? Black Wall Street in Durham, North Carolina. You guessed it, the so-called white man. Now let me scroll down. Now here it says, ask longtime elderly residents of Durham about the fate of Black Wall Street, and they will tell you with tears in their eyes the devastating effects that the paving of the freeway Highway 147 and other urban renewal projects had on their community. So while this place in Durham, North Carolina was prospering, Esau came with a plan to bring a freeway right through the exact area where they had all their businesses set up, where their hub was set up in Durham, North Carolina. And that totally wiped everything out. This is the devil, the fucking so-called white man. This is how this low-life piece of shit, this is how he operates. This is what he does. Okay? This is why we call him the devil. You can't see that the so-called white man is a devil. Something is wrong with you. All right? They paved a highway right through the exact area of land where Black Wall Street, Durham, North Carolina was located. And they called it urban renewal projects. These urban renewal projects had on their community, it totally decimated them. In more recent years, we begin to see a new gentrification strategy being played out, not only in Durham, but in black communities across the country. Although the locations may change, the methods of operations remain the same. So that's what brought down Black Wall Street in Durham, North Carolina. Now let me go back to let me hit a couple scriptures. I want to go to the book of Psalms. Okay, so let me get the book of Psalms. Psalms, the 10th chapter. Because it's very deceptive when you read this article. Blacks in Boston have a median net worth of $8 while whites are worth $247K. That's very deceptive when you read that. And it's not just like that in Boston. It's like that all over the U.S., man. It's like that all over the U.S. It's not just Boston. Boston's in America, ain't it? Psalms 10 and 7. It says, his mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. That's what we read about what happened to Black Wall Street in Durham, North Carolina. Now, there are also the Black Wall Street that most of us commonly speak about and always talk about is the Black Wall Street that was in Tulsa. Now, Black Wall Street that was in Oklahoma, let's look at what these devils did there. Okay, we pull this up. Okay, let me pull this up. See if I can get it here. Yeah, I believe this is one. This is a picture of what these devils did when they went in. Black Wall Street and the Tulsa Massacre of 1921 explained. So let me just briefly just read through this. 98 years ago, one of the worst episodes of violence sparked by racism in America erupted in the heart of one of the most prosperous black communities in the nation, dubbed Black Wall Street. Due its affluent black residents, the Greenwood neighborhood of Oklahoma, where the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre took place, was a hub of black success, featuring black owned homes and establishments, including banks, restaurants, and hotels, in a community that included accomplished lawyers, doctors, and dentists. It was one of few predominantly black areas that thrived economically after the end of the Civil War and into the 20th century, which would be into the time of Reconstruction, what they call Reconstruction. When racial discrimination was the order of the day, the residents of Greenwood faced racism from those in neighboring white communities, and the tension hit a fever pitch in 1921 when a 19-year-old Dick Rowland, who was black and apprehended by police on May 31st for allegedly assaulting a 17-year-old white elevator operator, Sarah Page, inside of an office building on South Main Street. Accounts differ as to what occurred between the two. Some say he accidentally stepped on her foot when entering the elevator, causing her to scream. But the encounter sparked widespread outrage among white people who rioted and destroyed Black Wall Street, which never fully recovered from the incident. All right. It says after Rowland was arrested, an armed white mob spent 24 hours looting and burning homes, schools, libraries, movie theaters, and other businesses. This was all there in Tulsa and Black Wall Street. Eyewitnesses reported seeing planes hovering overhead as buildings burned from the top down. On the streets below, scores of black people who were shot and killed by white people, many of whom were given weapons by police. Historians believe as many as 300 were murdered, but there will probably never be an accurate death toll, according to the Ringer. Eyewitnesses say they saw bodies piled onto tracks and dumped in unmarked graves. Okay. In the massacre's aftermath, 35 city blocks were left in charred ruins and 10,000 people were homeless. Look at that. 35 city blocks were destroyed. 10,000 people were homeless. These were all black people. And these were black people who were prosperous, who were successful, who were business owners, who weren't looking for a handout from the white man. They were doing for themselves. And Esau, through jealousy and envy and using a bullshit excuse, black man tried to rape a white woman or assaulted a white woman, went in there and they totally decimated it. So that's the reason why blacks are worth $8 and whites are worth 247K in Boston because of shit like this. So now let me go back. Let me go back up top, show you this picture. So let's go back to the scriptures. Psalms 10 and 7. His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. That's the so-called white man. Let me go get another scripture. So you can see already how this so-called white man or how this devil operates. You see how this devil operates. So now let me keep going. Let me give you another one. So now we dealt with slave. We talked about slavery. We talked about Reconstruction. We talked about Lincoln signing a bill to give white slave owners reparations at $300 per head for each slave that they lost when slavery was abolished. We talked about white people getting reparations for losing their slaves, and black people who were slaves could not get 40 acres and 2 mules reparations for being enslaved by you devils. We talked about Reconstruction, which was so-called to allow black people the right to vote. And then during that time, you had black people in uh, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Durham, North Carolina, that set up their own businesses, their own system, where they were loaning to each other. They had banks, they had businesses where they were set up and were doing quite well and living good, and how you devils came down and you dropped the hammer on that and you destroyed that. Also, another thing that you devils did, let's talk about Rosewood. The Rosewood Massacre. Let's talk about that. Let's read a little bit about Rosewood. It says the Rosewood Massacre was an attack on the predominantly African American town of Rosewood, Florida, in 1923 by large groups of whites. The town was entirely destroyed by the end of the violence, and the residents were driven out permanently. The story was mostly forgotten until the 1980s when it was revived and brought to the public attention. Okay? Now, Rosewood, John Singleton did a movie on this in the early or mid 90s. The name of the movie was called Rosewood. Now, this was a place that was this was actually an abandoned area. It was abandoned by the so-called white man, and then Jakes came in there and took it over and made it prosperous. Okay, as a matter of fact, let me read a little bit more about it here. Roseville, Florida. Though it was originally settled in 1845 by both blacks and whites, black codes and Jim Crow laws in the years after the Civil War fostered segregation in Rosewood and much of the South. Employment was provided by pencil factories, but the cedar tree population soon became decimated and white families moved away. So, this town that was founded by blacks and whites, the main business there was the pencil factory. And since they cut down all the cedar trees to make pencils, the factory moved away in the 1890s and settled in the so-called whites moved out in 1890 and they settled in the nearby town of Sumner. By the 1920s, Rosewood's population of about 200 was entirely made up of black citizens except for one white family that ran the general store, like they showed you in the movie. So that's just a little bit about Rosewood, but it was the Rosewood Massacre. This was a prosperous area of African American people in the South. And what happened? The so called white man burnt it down to the ground with the lie that a black man raped a white woman. All right. So now, when you see this article once again, blacks in Boston have a median net worth of $8 and whites are worth 247K. Historically, when you look at all the evidence, now you can see why. So now let's hit some scriptures. I'm gonna go to the book of let me get the book of James. James 5. James 5 and James 5 and 4. It says, behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud. Slavery. We reaped down your fields, kept back by fraud. Because we didn't, the Dred Scott case, we didn't get the 40 acres and the 2 mules. The hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, by you, the so called white man. And the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. See, our cries have entered into the ears of the Most High. And the Most High is going to do something about it. Now, let me get another scripture. I'm going to go to the Apocrypha. And I want to get the book of Ecclesiasticus 31. Which in some places is going to say Ecclesiasticus. In other places it'll say Ben Sura. 31. And I'm going to start at the 31 and 21. No, it's like here. It's another book that I was looking for. No, I was in the wrong book. I was in the right book, but I was in the wrong chapter. It's chapter 34. Ben Surah chapter 34, verse 21. Yeah, this is what I wanted right here. The bread of the needy is their life. He that defraudeth him thereof is a man of blood. He that taketh away his neighbor's living slayeth him. And he that defraudeth the laborer of his hire is a bloodshedder. And that's you, the so-called white man. Okay, you're a defrauder and you're a bloodshedder. All right, you are a bloodshedder. I'm going to read it again. Ecclesiasticus 34 and 21, or the book of Ben Surah 34:21. The bread of the needy is their life. He that defraudeth him thereof is a man of blood. He that taketh away his neighbor's living slayeth him. He that defraudeth the laborer of his hire is a bloodshedder. And that's you, the so-called white man. Now let me get another scripture. I'm going to hit a couple scriptures, and then I'm going to go finish this off. But I just want to touch on some scriptures. I want to go to the book of Nahum, the 3rd chapter. Nahum 3. I'm going to read Nahum 3 and 1. Woe to the bloody city! It is full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. Woe to the bloody city! It is full of lies, which is talking about here, America. It is full of lies and robbery. Look at what you did to Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Black Wall Street, Durham. Look at what you did during the Reconstruction, which was after slavery. We were supposed to get 40 acres and 2 mules. You didn't give us that, but then you gave the goddamn slave owners $300 a head per slave since slavery was abolished. You gave them reparations for losing their slaves because slavery was abolished. And that's in the South and in the North also too. All right. Woe to the bloody city! It is full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. So let me get another scripture. Ezekiel, the 35th chapter. We're going to go to Ezekiel 35. Let's get Ezekiel 35. And let me find it here. Ezekiel 35. See, but all of that mess that you did, there's payback that's coming. Ezekiel 35 and 6. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord power, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate. And the ones that did this to us is you, the so-called white man, Edom. You are Mount Seir. So the Lord is going to make you Edomites, you so-called white people, desolate, and cut off from it him that passeth out and him that returneth. All right. So now another thing that I didn't get to touch on, that I'm going to touch on now. Also, during that time period, most of the stuff we read about Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Durham, it was in the 1920s. Also with Rosewood, that was 1923. The Black Wall Street thing was what, 1921, so on and so forth. When you go about 20 years further into the future from there, to the time of World War II, Negroes, West Indians, Native Americans fought in World War II. Now, when the boys came back home, the so-called white man passed something called the GI Bill. Now, when they passed this thing called the GI Bill, let's see what happened. It says how the GI Bill's promise was denied to 1 million blacks black World War II veterans. The sweeping bill promised prosperity to the veterans, so why didn't black Americans benefit? So now, black people in the 40s that came back from serving World War II, there's a GI Bill that was set up that was supposed to allow you to be able to buy property and buy land and allow you to go to college. Blacks could not benefit from the GI Bill because the so-called white man systematically blocked them. So for someone to put this out here, this article, this Boston article, blacks in Boston have a median net worth of $8, while whites are worth 247K. This is totally disingenuous. The average nut job will look at something like this and be like, if you think about the movie American History X, when the white boy who was played by I forget the actor's name, but the character's name was Vineyard, Derek Vineyard, I believe, and he was crying after his father was murdered in a black neighborhood. His father was a fireman, and he was like, "Wow, these Irish people came here. They were immigrants. We were poor. They flourished in a generation. Why can't these black people flourish? Why they got to go around killing firemen?" He's crying, but he don't even know the half. See, the reason why the Irish and the Italians was able to flourish when you came here, when you first came here, you were looked at as niggas because you were the niggas of Europe, number one. So the so-called white man here in America, they didn't want nothing to do with you. But then you got the complexion for the protection. They would rather allow you to get up in there and get some type of control or some power than to let African Americans, Negroes, woolly hair, dark skin get up and get power. That's why the Irish took control of what? The police department and the fire department. And the Italians got control of what? And the Irish, you had the Irish mafia and the Italian mob. But then the Irish got up in what? The police departments. They took control of the police departments and the fire departments. And the Italians basically, they were running everything in the street. And then they got up in there, they got up in certain positions in the, police department, fire department. But that's really the Irish control that. And the Italians got the prominent positions. But as for a Negro, you would not allow a Negro to get anywhere near anything. So that's the reason why black people are worth $8 and white people are worth 247K in Boston because of the wickedness of the so-called white man. It says here how the GI Bill's promise was denied to 1 million black veterans. Now it says here, when Eugene Burnett saw the neat track houses of Levittown, Pennsylvania, it says, excuse me, Levittown, New York, he knew he wanted to buy one. It was 1949, and he was ready to settle down in a larger home with his family. The newly established Long Island suburb seemed like the perfect place to begin their post-war life, one that he hoped would be improved with the help of the GI Bill, a piece of sweeping legislation aimed at helping World War II veterans like Burnett prosper after the war. But when he spoke with the salesman about buying the house using a GI Bill guaranteed mortgage, the door to suburban life in Levittown slammed firmly in his face. The suburb wasn't open to black residents. It was as though it wasn't real. Burnett's wife, Bernice, recalled, "Look at this house. Can you imagine having this? And then for them to tell me because of the color of my skin that I can't be a part of it. This is the shit that you fucking devils did." All right. And the article goes on. Like I said, I'm not trying to make this super long, but every one of these articles, I'll put the links in the description box. But this is the type of shit you did, which the result of it today, 2019, the result of blacks being worth $8 and white being worth 247K in the city of Boston, but throughout the U.S. So now let me keep reading. I got some more scriptures I want to touch on. So that's why, because of the fucking lopsided game that you fucking devils set up. But again, like I said, there's a day of reckoning coming, and the Most High is going to flip this thing upside down. So I got a couple scriptures to read, and then I'm going to close this out. Now, I'm going to the book of Jeremiah, We're going to go to the book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah, the 31st chapter. Jeremiah 31 and Jeremiah 31 and 28. It says, "And it shall come to pass that like as I have watched over them to pluck up and to break down and to throw down and to destroy." This is talking about us, and that's what happened to us. The Most High plucked up, he broke down, and he threw down, and he destroyed us, and used our enemy to do it, and to afflict. So will I watch over them to build and to plant, saith the Lord power. All right. So see, the Lord, this thing is going to get flipped around, and the Lord is going to watch over us so that we're able to prosper, so that we're able to build. And that's talking about in the kingdom. And even a little before the kingdom, we're going to get a little taste of something, even before the kingdom gets here. Now I'm going to go to the book of Ezekiel, the 28th chapter. Ezekiel 28. Oh, boy. All right, here we go. Ezekiel 28. Where you at, Ezekiel? Here you go. Ezekiel 28. I'm going to go to Ezekiel 28 and 26. Ezekiel 28 and 26. "And they shall dwell safely therein, and shall build houses, and plant vineyards. Yea, they shall dwell with confidence, when I have executed judgments upon all those that despise them round about them, and they shall know that I am the Lord their power." See, so this is the day that's coming. Read it again. Ezekiel 28 and 26. "And they shall dwell safely therein, and shall build houses, and plant vineyards. Yea, they shall dwell with confidence, when I have executed judgments upon all those that despise them round about them, and they shall know that I am the Lord their power." Now I'm going to get another scripture and close it off with this scripture. So see, the day of reckoning is coming, so-called white man. And at the end result, this is what it's going to come to. Let me get the close off here with the book of Isaiah. Isaiah, the 60th chapter. And those of you brothers out there listening to this lesson, you know where I'm going. I'm going Isaiah 60 and 10. Isaiah 60 and 10 down to 15. "And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls." This is talking about in the kingdom of heaven. "And their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee." So your kings, your kings, your politicians, your monarchs, they're going to minister unto us. They're going to wait on us hand and foot. "Therefore thy gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles," meaning their riches, "and that their kings may be brought." And that your kings, not only are your riches gold, silver, rubies, diamonds, jade, sapphires, onyx stone, things like that are going to be brought, but your kings also are going to be brought. "For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. Yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted. The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary," raw materials to rebuild the land of Israel. We're going to rebuild the city of Bethlehem. We're going to rebuild the house of David. We're going to rebuild it. "And I will make the place of my feet glorious. The sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee, and all that despise thee shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet. And they shall call thee the city of the Lord, the Zion," which means monument of the Holy One of Israel. The Holy One of Israel, that's Yahweh Shai. "Whereas thou hast been forsaken and hated, so that no man went through thee, I will make thee an eternal excellency, a joy of many generations." See, so that's going to be our end right there. The kingdom of heaven, riches beyond our wildest belief. and total domination over all of our enemies, especially the fucking so-called white man. So I hope you brothers understand why I touched on this article. Blacks in Boston have a median net worth of $8, while whites are worth 247,000. And I went through the reasons why this thing is so. So I hope brothers learn something. And with that, I'm gonna say shalom.